You're never alone in Friartown. This phrase, this philosophy, coined by John Rock, the Senior Associate Athletic Director for Sports Medicine at Providence College, holds more meaning now than ever before. As the coronavirus pandemic has forced the PC community apart, the college has quickly put programs in place to help the Friar family stay connected virtually. In this rebroadcast, we'll hear from John just after he won the college's esteemed Torchbearer Award in 2018. He'll describe all it takes to support Division I student athletes, the college's holistic approach to wellness and education, and why here you're never alone. Thank you for joining us. My name is Joe Carr, and I'm happy to welcome you to the Providence College Podcast. Our guest today is John Rock, Senior Associate Athletic Director for Sports Medicine. From injury treatment to rehab and recovery to conditioning, sports medicine is all about caring for student athletes. John and his colleagues take that job seriously, and they take it further than you might think. We will talk about the comprehensive approach and the team that it takes to keep Friar athletes prepared to perform at the highest level. Thanks for joining us today, John.
Thank you, Joe. It's a pleasure to be here.
First, I want to congratulate you on winning the Providence College Torchbearer Award for 2018. That's a professional staff member being recognized for extraordinary service to Providence College. Well deserved. Congratulations on that. How'd you feel when you got that word that you were going to pick up that honor this year?
It was rather humbling, Joe, to be honest with you. It caught me completely by surprise. My colleagues duped me into going to the staff meeting, which I normally don't attend. So it was quite an honor, rather humbling.
Well, there were a lot of smiles around that room when Father Shanley announced that. So all of your fans and friends and admirers were very happy for you, and that includes Chris and me. So congratulations on that. Let's talk about your pathway to PC. So you're a Rhode Island guy, right?
Yes, I am. I grew up in Riverside, so a native of Rhode Island, a lifetime PC fan. My dad was a 1947 grad of Providence, so I've had it in my blood since birth. So
tell me a little bit about your dad. His name is Joe Rock, class of 47, so World War II veteran, and then became an athletics administrator at a high school?
That is correct. He was a teacher, coach, and athletic director at Scituate High School when I was very young growing up, and then he moved on to East Providence High School while I was in high school there. He was the AD there all through the 1970s during the Title IX transition with women's sports, and then he retired in the early 80s.
And he introduced you to Friar basketball at a young age, right? You mentioned seeing Jimmy Walker. You maybe don't remember it too well, but you know you were in the gym with him?
Yes, I was. Yeah, my first games were here in Alumni Hall, and then I had season tickets to the 73 team that went to the Final Four with Ernie D. and Marvin Barnes, so that was quite a thrill.
When did you get the idea you might like to be an athletic trainer?
It's kind of interesting. When I was a sophomore in high school, I played baseball, but with my dad being the athletic director, I was a manager for the football team. And one day, I was walking through the locker room and I saw one of the assistant coaches taping somebody's ankle. And I was so intrigued by it. And he just looked at me and he said, you can go to school for that. And that was it. When I was a sophomore in high school, I knew what I wanted to do. And I've been doing it ever since.
So after Springfield College and then a master's at Western Michigan, you rode some buses in minor league baseball and then moved into college work?
That is correct. Spent one summer in Class A baseball as an athletic trainer in the New York Penn League up in upstate New York, and then at a small Division III college, Hampden-Sydney College in Southern Virginia, and then 2 years as an assistant athletic trainer at Princeton before coming to Providence in 1988.
Your thoughts on the role of a trainer as part of a team? Many years ago, I traveled for several years with a college hockey team, to broadcast their games, and observed that the trainer really had an important role to play in the sort of society of a team. He could be sort of a buffer between the coach and the players, somebody the players came to with different kinds of issues and concerns they perhaps couldn't take to the coaches. What are your thoughts on that and what a trainer means to a team?
Well, it's you hit it on the head. The athletic trainer is part of the coaching staff, yet not a coach. certainly not a student athlete, but oftentimes becomes the confidant for most student athletes. The training room becomes the place where student athletes can vent frustrations, can share jokes, and have a good time, and it's an opportunity for them to be away from the grind, so to speak, from their sport. So it's a unique position because you're caught in the middle. You are part of the staff, and it's important that you communicate to coaches what's going on with their student athletes, and at the same time, there is often information that you keep away from the coach because you want to work it out with that student athlete, and you need to earn the trust of the student athlete in order for you to be able to do your job effectively.
At the same time, I would guess there's a great deal of satisfaction when the team succeeds because the trainer is a part of the team.
Without a doubt, and I've often said, I've never scored a goal or hit a home run or made a big save, but I absolutely I am thrilled with the victories, and I share the agony of defeat. And if you were to talk to any of the coaches that I have ever worked with, they would share with you that I'm rather passionate on the sideline, and I often let officials know what I think of them. A little bit less so with basketball because you're a little too close to them. So.
Let's talk a little bit about your job. So it's sports medicine. You oversee a substantial staff. It's not just trainers. It's strength and conditioning coaches. Well, you tell us. What does this all involve in the Friar athletics environment?
Well, it is rather all-encompassing, and it has changed so much in my 38 years in the profession. I do... Administratively, I oversee our strength and conditioning program. We have 5 full-time strength coaches plus a graduate assistant, and we have 9 certified athletic trainers on staff. Each one are assigned specific sports here at PC. We have primary care team physicians. We have orthopedic surgeons that come into the training room on a weekly basis. We have chiropractic, we have massage therapy, we have sports nutrition and dietitian, we have a sports psychologist. So it is a multitude. It's a multi-pronged approach in dealing with our student athletes, and our overall philosophy is to deal with the whole person, not just the injured part. So we want to try to take care of them physically and emotionally. So
let's talk a bit about the emotionally supporting student athletes emotionally as you bring that up here, because there's a now famous phrase, "You're never alone in Friar Town," which you coined earlier this year or late last year. It was part of an event where Shamiqua Holdsclaw and Katie Fagan, Holdsclaw, of course, former WNBA star, and Katie Fagan, an ESPN reporter and an author, came to campus with a presentation you were very involved in. So this idea of providing for this mental health support and emotional support of student athletes is really ingrained in what you're doing now. How did that come about, and why is it so important?
Well, again, I've often said that the thing that I have been trained in the least and I do the most is psychology. When you're dealing with an injured athlete, it's a unique circumstance for them. Most of our student athletes have never been injured before. They've never been taken away from the thing that has driven them to be a Division I college student athlete. They want to be participating, and most of the time the injuries are minor, but we do deal with season-ending, sometimes career-ending injuries, and when that happens, you really have to look at the psychological and the emotional side of things and how student athletes respond to that. There is an incredible amount of pressure for our student athletes, certainly athletically, but academically, they are made to meet a standard academically by their coaches, and also socially. It's an incredibly social time in their lives as a college student, and it's tough to balance that all the time. And sometimes we get kids that get caught up in that a little bit, and they struggle with it. 30 years ago, you would deal with the psychological aspect of an injury, but not so much the personal psychological issues. Everyone has some issue. Everyone. We all do. And some people handle them better than others. Some people handle them differently. With mental health and with our phrase, "You're never alone in Friartown," we really try to get the message across to our student athletes that you truly are never alone. There is someone on this campus that you can speak to. It doesn't have to be a coach. It doesn't have to be an athletic trainer. It doesn't have to be someone in the athletic department. It could be someone in campus ministry. It could be someone in administration. It could be someone in the cafeteria. It could be a security guard. We just want our student athletes to know that that they don't need to hide it. They don't need to struggle through it on their own. And the stigma behind mental health, especially with student athletes, is incredibly high. The tough it out mentality. I've got to be strong enough to handle this by myself. And what we really tried to do last year, and we will continue moving forward, is to let our student athletes know that it's not a weakness to say that you're struggling. It's actually a strength to say that you're struggling. And for those student athletes who have done that, we've been able to assist them, get them to our counseling center. We have increased our relationship with our counseling center incredibly. We work now much better with student services. We have a relationship with the college's care team where we can get student athletes put on the care team. We have one of my staff members is part of the care team now. So it's something that's in process. It's not perfect, but it is so much a part of what we deal with on a daily basis now.
Care team, we should say, is a student affairs initiative, a part of the student affairs operation here at PC, which involves helping students deal with immediate concerns, and having an athletics element to that makes a lot of sense, of course, when it comes to student athletes. But one of the nice things about this is that it's integrated. You talk about student affairs, academic affairs through academic support, mission and ministry, and that's sort of what PC is all about in many ways, isn't it? It takes the whole community to support each other. Absolutely. And I think in some places when they talk about family, it's a facade. And I don't think, I know that our student athletes, our student body understands that, when Ed Cooley talks about the, we, us, together, Friar's family, that means something. That's something that he talks about in our locker room. And I've spoken with alums who have been to other campuses or have friends and relatives at other schools that don't have that kind of relationship. And I absolutely believe it's one of the things that makes Providence College truly special. You referenced this, but I'd like you to pick up on it. This is a continuing effort. The Shamiqua Holtzclaw Katie Fagan visit was a big success, of course, but just earlier this month, Bob Driscoll, the athletic director, tweeted one day that he was excited about going into a meeting with coaches and senior staff to continue the discussion about emotional support, mental health as it comes to as it relates to student athletes. So what else is happening? How will this evolve? Well, and that is, again, an initiative that we have worked with
the Personal Counseling Center, and what we're trying to do is to educate our coaches on what the signs and symptoms are. What should they be looking for if one of their student athletes is dealing with some kind of a mental health issue. And one of the things that and I haven't figured it out yet, but there's a stigma to the term mental health, and again, especially with student athletes, and I would love to come up with another phrase, brain health. I don't know. I'm not quite sure what the right answer there is, but we need to educate our coaches. Just like we're trying to educate our student athletes to seek out help. We need to make sure our coaches understand that these issues are real, and it's not just suck it up and tough it out mentality from a coach's standpoint. And we've had great feedback from our coaching staff. I have to tell you, they get it. They want to know more. They understand how little they do know about it. They rely heavily on our sports medicine staff. But, we're not with them all the time either. And we rely on our coaches. We rely on teammates that see issues. So we're trying to, again, it's a multi-pronged approach.
Well, this is important work, and thank you for the leadership role you're taking in it. And people listening can hear it, and I can see it. It's because you care, and that's really what it comes down to, isn't it?
It is. It's, when I meet with recruits and their parents, one of the things I tell them is I'm the parent of 3 children. I have a son who was a former Division III student athlete, and I know what it's like to be a parent with a student that might not be close to home. And I try to let them know that I'm going to treat their son or daughter the way I would hope that my son or daughters would be treated if they were away at school. It is a pseudo parental role that you take. It's incredibly rewarding, and it's rewarding to maintain relationships after student athletes graduate. I'm not much of a Facebook guy, but I like to say I'm a Facebook stalker, because I follow our former student athletes and see how they have grown professionally, personally, seeing them raise their families. And it's incredibly rewarding to keep those relationships going.
Let's go back to talking about the work itself a little bit, John, as it comes to treating injuries and rehabilitating athletes. And I'm interested in technology and the way that's changed. In the Canavan Sports Medicine Center here right now, you have access to some really interesting things, and in Schneider Arena, by the way, things to help students recover from injuries, student athletes, and there's more coming. How has that changed your work over the course of your career?
Well, I think you have to stay up to date with. We're part of the medical profession. The medical profession is constantly changing in the areas of rehab, and our surgeons and the techniques that they do with surgeries. So we try to stay abreast. We go to conferences annually. The things that we have in the Canavan Sports Medicine Center now, which has been open for 11 years, with hydrotherapy, and we have an Ultra G, which is an anti-gravity treadmill. Some of the things that became famous, in the Olympics with cupping. A lot of the U.S. Olympic swimmers. So we have staff members. It's the beauty of having younger staff members, Joe. It's, they've been educated in a different way than I was educated. And as we bring on younger staff members, they bring technology with them. And, it's my role to allow those different types of techniques to become part of our program.
As we look out the window here, we're using Bob Driscoll's conference room to record this conversation. We can almost see the construction underway of the Ruane Friar Development Center that will be opening Phase 1 this fall, and in there will be even more updated athletic training facilities and injury rehabilitation facilities. What will we see in there, and what kind of impact will that have on student athletes in terms of their physical health going forward?
Well, we are creating what we are calling an innovation lab within the Ruane Development Center. We will have a cryotherapy chamber, which is a deep freeze 2.5 to 3 minute cold therapy treatment in 140 degrees below zero, liquid nitrogen. It sort of looks like this science experiment. We're going to have sensory deprivation float pods, which are designed for relaxation and healing. You actually float in hot water filled with Epsom salts, and you can actually fall asleep or listen to music, and it's designed for relaxation and for healing injuries. One of the latest trends in sports science is sleep deprivation, and it really is prominent amongst college student athletes with their academic schedules, with their social schedules. That not very many of our student athletes, get 8 hours of sleep. So we're going to have nap pods where student athletes can come in between classes if they have time, and they can lay in this funky 22nd century looking device and put on a set of headphones and listen to some soothing music and take a nap. Recovery is a huge component now in sports medicine, so we're going to have an entire area dedicated to recovery with recovery pants and reclining chairs, anti-gravity chairs. Looking out at our track, it's going to be. I was actually in there yesterday with Coach Cooley and our Kenny White, our head strength coach, and it's going to be pretty remarkable and pretty out of the box. And when it's completed, the innovation lab, I'm not sure there are many schools in the country that will have all of the things that we're going to have in there. I certainly know that no one in the Big East Conference will have all of the things in there, which is one of the things we were looking to do. We, one of the things Bob Driscoll likes to do, he likes to be on the cutting edge, and he wants other schools in the Big East to look at Providence and say that's the way we want to do it. So we're hoping that we're going to have that, and that's going to be available to all of our student athletes. So we're really looking forward to that opening in the fall.
Well, you talk about people who want Friar student athletes to have access to everything they need to succeed, and you mentioned Bob, but also Mike Ruane, Joe Canavan, all these people who have provided this great support to help make this all happen.
Without a doubt, and I'm not sure why, but 11 or 12 years ago, I established a wonderful relationship with Joe and Mary Beth Canavan, and they have supported our sports medicine program beyond belief, it's nice. It's nice for me to be able to report back to them on what we're doing with some of the funds that they've put into our program. Obviously, the commitment that Mike has put in to the entire college, but most specifically now this Ruane Development Center, it's going to be spectacular.
They do want the best for PC, and that's what it all comes down to, and we're fortunate to have that support, that's for sure. I'd like to touch on one other aspect of this work. You referenced it briefly a few minutes ago, and that is nutrition. There are staff members who are specialists in nutrition. How do you manage that in an environment where student athletes are on a campus? They have access to certain places to eat certain kinds of food, and it, I imagine, would get kind of tricky and complicated.
Well, we have a sports nutrition dietitian consultant, Katie Jeffrey, is on campus in our training room 2 days a week. She meets individually with student athletes. She meets with teams. She meets with coaching staffs. And quite frankly, it's all about education. And, you can educate our student athletes on what they should and shouldn't be eating. But ultimately, it's up to them, A couple of years ago, I was over in the cafeteria, and it was the day of a soccer game. And, I saw one of our soccer players standing in line to get, French fries and a chicken patty on a game day. And there was a long line waiting for French fries and a chicken patty, but the line right next to it was a piece of broiled chicken, and there was no line. And, and afterwards he said to me, well, there really aren't that many choices. I countered that with it's up to the choices that you want to make. So it is a difficult process. They are young adults, and most of them off on their own for the first time and getting to choose what they want to eat, and they don't often make the best decisions. So it's like everything, Joe. What we try to do is we try to give them as much information as we possibly can from an education standpoint, and ultimately it's up to them. And it's really cool when you see the kids that take that, and they take that information, and when you watch them develop over 1, 2, 3, 4 years with what they're doing from a nutritional standpoint, what they're doing from a sleep standpoint, what they're doing from a strength and conditioning standpoint in the weight room with our coaching, our strength coaches. They're different people. They're physically different people when they leave. As 22-year-olds, as opposed to who they came in as 18-year-olds.
Do you find that today, as compared to, say, 25 years ago, student athletes arrive here with a better understanding of the things that they need to do to help to make their bodies achieve at a high level? Things like nutrition, do they come in stronger, better acquainted with weight training techniques, things like that?
Yes and no. I hesitate in answering that because, yes, I think they come in bigger, stronger, faster. They've done more from a strength and conditioning standpoint, maybe from a nutritional standpoint in high school. But the downside to all of that, from my perspective, is the AAU mentality, and the AAU mentality is in almost all sports now, where kids don't get a break. They beat their bodies up. When
often playing just one sport, right?
When you and I were kids, in the fall you played football or soccer, in the winter you played basketball or hockey, and in the spring you played baseball, and now kids play lacrosse. But kids now at 10, 11, or 12 years old, and I don't know whether they're being forced to or it's just parent decisions, are becoming one sport athletes, and they're competing 11, 12 months of the year sometimes, and it's frustrating to get an 18-year-old freshman come into campus who has a multitude of injuries that they had in high school, and they technically come in damaged goods, and now we're supposed to be able to fix all of their problems, and it can be frustrating. So that was a roundabout answer to your question there. So I have pluses and minuses to that.
Interesting, though, and it seems obvious, but you're an expert, so let's ask. is there a physical element to considering what happens to a person who plays one sport year round? In other words, if your muscles are being asked to do the same thing all the time, are you going to get the same kinds of injuries as opposed to a situation where you're playing different sports and doing different things with your body?
Well, as opposed to saying certain injuries, it's just the overuse stress of the same muscles, the same ligaments, doing the same repeated activity day after day, week after week, month after month. The fact of the matter is, if you were to play a different sport, even though you're using the same muscles, you're using them in different ways. But that's not the nature of sport in 2018. So it's what we have to deal with. And most of the kids adjust to it well, but not all of them do.
Well, they're fortunate to have access to people like you and Ken White and others who can help them develop strategies for dealing with those kinds of things. Your profession is an interesting one, John, because it begins with what amounts to an apprenticeship situation where you learn by watching somebody practice the craft and develop from there. So throughout the course of your career, you've certainly mentored a large number of athletic trainers and set them on the course to start their careers. What's that feel like? What kinds of experiences have you had in watching people succeed in this profession and knowing that you've played a role in getting them started in the right way?
Well, I go back to the way I was mentored and the people that mentored me. When I was at Princeton University, Dick Malacray was the head athletic trainer there, who is an icon in our profession. And I watched the way he worked as an athletic trainer. And you had mentioned earlier before we went on air about the art of a profession. And I think you can say there's an art to any and every profession, and there certainly is that to athletic training. And it goes to how you deal with people and how you relate to people. I said earlier that I tell parents that I'm going to treat their son or daughter the way I would expect my children to be treated, and I truly mean that. And I think if you care, if you truly care about the individual, and you add that with a little bit of knowledge in the profession, you can go a long way. And when we hire young athletic trainers just coming out of school, they have book knowledge that I will never have. But I have 38 years of experience that I can show them, and again, I think it really comes down to how you treat people, treating people with respect. I truly believe that when a student athlete walks into our training room, it doesn't matter if they are one of our men's basketball players who may be heading to the NBA, or one of our men's ice hockey players who may be heading to the NHL, or if it's one of our non-scholarship swimmers or tennis players. We try the best we can to treat them all with respect. We are not going to treat a basketball player any differently than we're going to treat a tennis player. And that's my philosophy, and I believe that we succeed at that.
So John is the distinguished-looking gentleman who you see going out on the court to scoop up the basketball player who has twisted his ankle or whatever may have happened. Certainly a familiar sight, hopefully not very often from the perspective of a fan. But basketball is something you're very involved in, of course, professionally and very high profile. Reminds me of the idea that you first remember seeing PC basketball as a very young child when Jimmy Walker was playing in the gym here on campus. What does that feel like to you to consider that this is the first memory you have of Providence College, and now you're involved in something that's succeeding at such a high level, a national level, and something that's raising the college's profile in such an important way? Well,
it's really very interesting, and it's humbling because I do think of that often. I also try not to take myself too seriously. I know who I am, and to be honest with you, I much prefer sitting on the end of the bench watching the game as opposed to being out on the court during a game. If barring someone actually getting injured during the game, my work is done when I walk onto the court to watch the game. We've been there for 3 hours beforehand, and we will be there after. So, again, I shared, Pete Luthus was the athletic trainer when I was a young boy watching PC play. And when I first came to Providence in 1988, I had the opportunity to meet Pete, and that was a thrill for me. It is humbling beyond belief to have people come up to me and say, "Hey, I see you on TV all the time," that's not really what I do it for. That's not what I'm in it for. But it is what it is when you're involved with Providence College men's basketball, for sure. So you sort of try to take it and try to remain humbled.
Well, even brighter days are ahead for Friar men's basketball and Friar sports in general. You're a big part of that. So congratulations on all of that. Thanks for all that you do. And thanks for talking with us today. This has been a lot of fun. We've enjoyed it very much. And it's a beautiful spring day, and we promise to get you out of here within just a few minutes from now, because you're going to play golf with swim and diving coach John O'Neill and with cross-country and track coach Ray Tracy. So take it easy on them and have a good time.
Well, I appreciate it. This has been a real pleasure, Joe. Thank you very much.
Our guest has been John Rock, and we thank you for joining us today. You can subscribe to the Providence College podcast at all the usual places, and they're available on the college's YouTube channel. Feedback is welcome at podcast@providence.edu. Thanks to our producer, Chris Judge. I'm Joe Carr. Until next time.